Oklahoma's trending for a defensive line prospect in the 2026 recruiting class. Let's discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners are now trending for James Carrington, the former Florida State commit. He had committed to Florida State back in June. I'm getting him and Braden Allen confused. Braden Allen was a July commit to Tulane. James Carrington was a June commit to Florida State. Decommitted from the Seminoles on Thursday. Steve Wiltfong of Rivals, also on 3 in some capacity, Rivals, issued a future cast favoring the Oklahoma Sooners for James Carrington.
Yeah, Oklahoma was in on Tank Carrington from back when he was a sophomore going into his junior year. He was pretty highly ranked. Georgia was heavy on him. He's got a very good offer sheet. And, Oklahoma was looking at him. They were actually going to bring him in for a visit. I remember he posted a picture on it, and I was like, okay, looks good. But then, he posted after that he won't be making the visit anymore. And I'm like, man, I was hoping that we're still going to be hunting him down. But again, his offer sheet's nice, including, the Florida State pledge. He had USC, Georgia, Oregon, Miami, South Carolina, Maryland, Notre Dame, A&M, Alabama, LSU, Michigan, Florida, Tennessee, Penn State, Ole Miss, Syracuse. Basically all of the schools that are good when it comes to defensive linemen, especially tackles. And so he was one that was highly recruited, picked Florida State. And now it looks like, he decided to open it back up. And Oklahoma picked up the phone and said, hey, we got Jake Cruel in, and we're kind of ready to, add more and lock down some more of the spots that we really need locked down. And so if you can get James Carrington to flip, which the anticipation is that he decommitted and he could make a choice very soon. He's a 4-star over on ESPN, and he makes that change. You got what, T-Ron Richardson at the end of the month. So there's a possibility that Oklahoma could start wrapping up their recruiting here in August. Kind of like I told all y'all they probably would. This is literally what Oklahoma does. They usually get their main dudes in August, usually late July, August, and then they go into the season with a couple more recruiting things that they're looking at. But yeah, that's typically how this always goes.
Yeah, he's a guy that Todd Bates has liked for a long time, and so it's not surprising to see them circle back to him. Maybe some of it was getting Jim Nagy on board as well, because we know that Oklahoma took a little bit different approach, or not maybe a different approach, but recalibrated on some of their recruiting board and some of their recruiting rankings, and seeing them circle back. I think it's a good thing. You want to add interior defensive line depth. You've already got Brian Harris in the class. You got Jake Krell. You have Matthew Nelson out of Arkansas and Daniel Norman out of Florida. It's a really, really strong defensive line recruiting class. I think you need a little bit more interior, but you're still pretty young along the interior as well. So that gives a guy like James Carrington more time to physically develop his body to be able to play in the rigors of the SEC. You don't have to have him come in the 2026 season and be a day one impact player. He can keep working on his game, work on his body, and be able to contribute down the line, because you still have in 2026, crazy to think, you'll have Jaden Jackson and David Stone and Trent Wilson. And who knows if you go into the portal to add somebody as well. But defensive line is looking really, really good, man. Miguel Chavis and Todd Bates, it might have taken them a few years, but they've done it, man. They've retooled Oklahoma's defensive line to where it's really, really good. And now, unless somebody is a legit stud, it's going to be unlikely to see guys come in day one and make an impact in that rotation. But I like James Carrington. I think he's got really strong potential. Just got to continue to see him develop. And this senior season is going to be huge for him. But yeah, there's a lot to like about what he's bringing to the table.
Yeah, it does. And you made a great point there. The one big thing that we've seen from Chavis and Bates is they've ramped up heavy on some of the talent. They've gotten some players to outplay their star numbers to the point of if you have to get players that you're getting a combination of projects and players that you hope can play soon. And the way that room is lined up, you've still got at least one more year of Jaden Jackson and David Stone and Nigel Smith. So that's 3 interior guys with Marcus Strong. So that's your 4th. Trent Wilson's back there. That's going to be 5. Whomever you bring in, unless they're a superstar that you think's going to outplay Jaden Jackson, David Stone, Nigel Smith, as well as Marcus Strong, which is very unlikely. You're going to be trying to build in that depth in guys that you can, get to build up to be ones to come in and play. Maybe they can come in and, steal some minutes or not. You never know, but a few snaps here or there. But I think that Tank would be a good project. Get him bulked up. I think he's like 270 now. Get him bulked up to closer to 3. He can be more like a Dominic Williams size. I think Dominic is roughly about 6'2" as well, around the same size. If you can build him up there, you got yourself a nice one for the minute that Jaden Jackson and David Stone's gone, and then you can really start to continue to build behind them. So I expect Oklahoma to get at least 1-2 more interior guys just to fill that out. But yeah, it's gonna be a bit, I guess you could say, but I do like his potential. He was, like I said, he was very highly rated as a young guy. The biggest thing is he didn't grow since he's 6'2", kind of considered quote unquote undersized. But Dominic Williams is also, again, around 6'2". And he was very much very talented and very technically sound. So I think that Tank can get to that point, and he'll be a good piece on that line for years to come.
Yeah, height is not nearly as important as length because you could play with really, really great leverage. Like Jaden Jackson is not a tall defensive tackle, but he's really technically sound, and he plays with great leverage. And he's just super strong
all the time. Goodness gracious.
Like low man wins, right? Along the offensive line or in the trenches or out in space, anywhere in football, low man wins. And if you can play with great leverage, great pad level, you're going to have a chance, even if you are a little bit undersized, quote unquote. But if he can get up to the 285, 290 range, keep his quickness, keep some athleticism and the agility, then he can play that 3 technique defensive tackle spot that lines up between the guard and the tackle. And he can be a difference maker, the Grayson Halton spot, right? The David Stone spot, kind of lining up in that where your job, get upfield, penetrate, get into the backfield, make a play, as opposed to Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams. Your job, hold up blockers, eat up space, don't get pushed off your spot, make sure they designate 2 guys to block you every single time.
Exactly.
It's a little bit different of a job at the nose tackle, 1 technique defensive tackle spot like Jackson and Dominic Williams play. But again, encouraging news for Oklahoma along the defensive line and with James Carrington. Again, this is a guy that they've liked for a really, really long time. Here's hoping they can land this commitment and then get that signature to signing day. Big week on the recruiting trail. Oklahoma is trending for several prospects. Talked about Braden Allen, the Tulane commit, 3-star wide receiver out of Louisiana. Don't sleep on those Louisiana kids. Built a little bit differently. So go check out that video yesterday where I talked about my favorite attribute of his hands. Dude has got some crazy, crazy hands. But coming up, we're going to go through your Friday fan feels here on Locked On Sooners.